Yay. All right, the recording. So now let me start our presentation. And presentation let's make this interactive. During the presentation, if you want to ask a question, just raise your hand. And if I don't see it, then just let me know and just talk over me. That's more than fine. So let's get to the recording. I'll get to presenting. Give me 1 second. I will do that and then we'll get going. Okay, so. Okay. Share the screen. And why is it not coming up? Great. Okay. All right, everybody seeing that? Perfect. Okay, so let's get going. So it's loading. Perfect. So this is a professional development series and it's called Leveraging an Internship, but we'll be a little bit beyond that. Here's the agenda: how to get the most from the remaining time of your internship. And I think this is important because a significant amount of students are in the middle of their internships. There's still a couple more weeks to go. There's still time to make it better. There's time to enhance or take care of any issues that you might have, reasons why you might want to leave or you are leaving an internship, and what are the next steps. And that can be part of the leveraging process, depending whether you want to leverage that into a full-time opportunity, another internship, or just contacts, tips and best practices, and then a Q&A after that. So I think this is important. Again, how to get the most out of the existing time in your internship before we get to leveraging, just to re-establish and reconnect with some of the best practices. So you might have seen this in the first events that we had. The orientation is you're still establishing goals and understanding your learning expectations. Those learning expectations and goals certainly might have changed since the internship has started. You know, you might have gone in there thinking one thing, and then through the process, or you were told that this is what the internship would look like. As anything, jobs, internships are organic. They move, they're organisms. It could have changed. From that, your goals or maybe your learning expectations have changed. The second one here, do the work. That's obvious, but it just makes sense. You know, I always tell students when they see me the first day on the job, you're going in there, I'm going to do great. I will do my best every single day. It does get noticed. If I am in a supervisory position, I ask somebody to do something and they actually do it, it makes me really happy that I can count on them. Acknowledge and learn from missteps. Everybody makes a mistake. It's not the end of the world. If you make a mistake, acknowledge it, fix it, and from there, you go on and you do something else. So you always learn and acknowledge from your missteps. Keeping track of your accomplishments is very important, not only for yourself, but, and we'll get to this when we get to leveraging this internship, and also when you may want to connect with individuals and organizations, and or just talk about yourself, like how cool you are, right? If you're talking about going into another job and you're referencing this position, this is what I did there, this is how I did it, and I did it really, really well. Well, you're bragging about yourself. I'm very okay with that. This is what we do when we try to get a job. I always laugh at students. I'm happy to go with you to a job interview. It's probably a bad idea. So if I'm not coming with you, then you want to be able to keep track of these accomplishments, to be able to talk about them. We'll talk about how to build a professional network through LinkedIn and even through Barnard Connect. Barnard Connect, if anybody is unfamiliar with it, it's if you put in your browser bar, you'll see it comes up. It's People Grove, and they speak of it as a community of Barnard alums and Barnard students. Barnard alums will not always, but there's a high likelihood they'll connect with you. My wife is an alum of the college. If she sees an email from Barnard, a student, she will respond. That's a fact. So we want to take care of that. And you want to be able to keep in touch with your internship. So it's a lot, but even, and this is kind of a rehash, and I know everybody's seen this before, but it's important to know this now as you're in the middle of an internship, and keep these ideas and notes when you get a full-time position, because it's everlasting. It's an evergreen. It just keeps going. Oops. Any questions? I don't think so. Okay. Now, why are you leaving an internship? This could be for any number of reasons. The ideal, right? Your internship is short term. It was the fall, spring, or summer. Terrific. I'm leaving that. You fulfilled all your expectations, even better. You met the goals of your internship experience, and now you're thinking, I need to do something different. This was wonderful, but I want to do something else. And you no longer have that availability to do the work. I'm busy. I've got something else to do in my life. What is not ideal sometimes is when you leave an internship, it's not meeting your expectations. It's just not what I thought it was going to be. That's okay. Your interests have shifted during the work. Your ideas, maybe the internship's kind of changed around you.
No, that's the topic.
I'm sorry? Just have your mics off if you can. That'd be terrific. You found another internship that better fits what you want to do. So you respectfully resign, and or this is unfortunate, but it can happen. The internship, your relationship was not ideal with your employer. It could be personality. It could be any number of things. And now, before we even get to this in advancing, if this ever does happen, our office door is always open. It's not uncommon. A lot of people go through this. Through the many jobs that you will have in your professional career as you advance, not every job will be ideal. Not every personality will jive. This isn't a personality contest. People still have to get work done, but sometimes there is an issue. It happens. There's no blame game, but happily, even if it's like you think it's an emergency and it's can't because I just can't face this the next day, make an email appointment with myself, any of the great advisors beyond Barnard. We'll talk to you about best steps and what's best for you and your future steps. Okay. Okay. What do you do as you approach the end of a successful internship, right? Okay, so I'm finishing. This is going to be great. This is terrific. Now, as your internship and final date of work approaches, you kind of might feel a little bit anxious about how am I going to finish this? What do I say? How do I say it? I'm a little bit anxious about my last exit interview. It doesn't even have to be, when we talk about an exit interview, it doesn't have to be so formal, but there will be goodbyes one way or the other. How do you approach that? Now, if you do want to return to this internship, this is interesting. Have a plan about how to articulate your willingness to continue the internship or be considered for future employment. And of course, schedule the time to speak to the supervisor. This articulation goes back to what we were saying before. You remembered your accomplishments. You can articulate, not only do I understand what this organization does because I was working there, not only did it align with me intellectually, possibly academically, possibly and or professional, and you can articulate that, but then you can articulate not only does this alignment parallel, and it's terrific, here are some of the great things that I've done for you. Don't be hesitant to reinforce how great you are. Even if the employer knows that, you're just reinforcing the fact, hey, I am pretty special, because it's like a thesis. I think, and I've spoken to students before, sorry if I'm repeating myself, but it's like when you have a thesis, you have an answer for everything. Why? Because. Well, why do you want to be here? Because. Oh, did you do the work? Yes, because. Think about that. And then you reflect on your experience. You consider what positives you gained from the experience and even from your challenges. Remember, learning what you do not like is as important what you like. And that's important as well, because when you have an internship, everything may not be spectacular. It just may not be smooth. Why? Because sometimes you're doing things that are out of your comfort zone. It's the first time you've ever done anything. It may be the first time you're in a work environment doing this, whatever this is that specific it's that specific role, a task. Well, maybe it didn't go so well at first. The best way I would look at that is, how did I learn from that? I was tasked the following. I really wasn't sure how to do it, but these are the steps that I took to get it done. And that's almost when you get that question in an interview. What are you not so good at? Well, where did you have a problem where you resolved it? Well, here's the example. I went here, I was assigned this, I wasn't really happy with my work. I did this, this, and this to create a better situation for myself and the employer. It worked. Those are some of the reflections you have. And again, you're not going to do this overnight. As you're participating in the internship, you're kind of just remembering this in your head. Exit on point. You know, you're not going to go in there and say, I am leaving. I'm being facetious, but remind your supervisor, if everybody's very busy, hey, remember next Friday is my last day. I'd like to know about best way to end it. Do I have to get back any kind of equipment? Do I have laptops? Do we have an exit interview? How do I do this? Again, you're going to have some type of goodbye, some type of extraction. I want to be prepared for that. I want to talk about that with my career goals. Even if you're not going to go back to this internship or it was short-lived, this person that you work for may be able to help you in future endeavors as a reference, as advice, possibly mentorship. That connection is very strong because it's a work connection. And if it's a work connection that is successful, that connection could last years, decades, because people remember you. If the internship is not over, you just keep working. You know, it's just, okay, it exited for summer. I have 2 weeks off. I may start again in the fall. You just keep working through it. You stay focused on your tasks, etc. And you always keep your supervisor apprised of where you are. Okay, just figure that. Okay, establish connections before you exit. Now, this is part of leveraging this experience. You want to show appreciation for the people who've been particularly helpful during your internship experience. And we'll talk about this. This could be a thank you note. It could be just going up to them the last week you're there. It could be a senior person in the internship. It could be one of the other interns. It could be anybody there who really helped you along emotionally, work-wise, task-wise. How about just figuring out maybe how to dress? How do I get to work? Where do I get lunch? I mean, it's work. It's new. That's really important. Show that appreciation. Start to connect with colleagues on LinkedIn. And we'll talk about this, but do it while you're there. Because, and we'll go back down below, avoid potential awkwardness by doing this after you leave. You don't want to leave and then all of a sudden start linking with people. You could, it's not the end of the world. But while you're there, you're making connections, you're a colleague of theirs, you're working in the same place as other people are working. Start that connection network on LinkedIn. From that connection network, the LinkedIn will expand because their connections now will start to be part of your connection circle. It's a great deal. And regularly update your network so that once you're in that LinkedIn network, you're updating your LinkedIn. This is what I've done. This is what I've accomplished. And also you're looking at invitations and or groups and or other new LinkedIn possibilities that are coming from the LinkedIn connections that you've made within the organization that you're at. This is how you really start to establish a bigger network. And then you can start, as we say, leverage what you've learned and where you're at. Make sense so far? Everybody okay? Now, thank you notes, they're important. Like, and a thank you note is, I think it's so underrated. And I've heard this many times, we'll get to this. You're interviewing for a job and internship or full-time job. You go through the interview process. At the very end of it, you'll know maybe the first person who's connecting with you, who you're interviewing with. There may be other people in the room that you know who they are, but you don't have their information. You can ask at the end of the interview, thank you so much for your time. Is it possible for the main person to send me the contact information of the people I met with today, and who you may know it. After an interview, it's very nice to be able to send a thank you note. Dear Ms. Smith, thank you so much for taking the time to interview me for the following position. after our conversation. I am very interested, or even more interested in the job. Please let me know if you have any other questions, and I can provide you with any more information you might need, something like that. Same thing happens now when you end an internship. You show appreciation for the people who've been, like we said, really helpful to you. They connected with you. They're just cool. That can happen. Send them a thank you note. It's a format you're comfortable with. It doesn't have to be a cover letter. It doesn't have to be that formal. It depends on who you're reading the room, how senior they were, and how your relationship was with them during the internship. If it was formal, hi, Miss Smith, the thank you note could be a little more formal. If it was less formal, hi, Jane, first name basis, it could be a little less formal. That format you'll be able to figure out as you go. But this number 3 is the most important part of this. This is really, really important. Be specific, but customize each letter so it's not generic. Now, how do you customize it? Maybe the one person who really helped you, you had a laugh about it. Boy, I was doing this wrong and I was wasting time and you showed me the right way to do it. Reference that. It could be you worked on a particular project that everybody was proud of. Remember that. And or it could be as simple as, remember when I kept coming in late because I was taking the wrong train and you told me I could take the bus and it worked out? Anything like that to remind them that you took the time to remember the connection that you made is just, you can't put it in words how valuable that is. So you're customizing it. Doesn't have to be long, but you're reminding them, not only you're an asset to me, but remember when we did this. Try to remember that. And that goes through any thank you note. People like to know it's just not, okay, it's a thank you note, it's generic, okay, you took the time to do it. But if you have the thank you note with a specific behind it, it's going to go much further. Okay. Now, I don't want to, not great, but maybe the internship wasn't so good. Maybe it was difficult. It can happen. I said this before. It's not atypical. Everybody's going to go through one. I've gone through jobs, internships. They weren't great. Depending how miserable it is, and I'm going to use the word miserable because it could be, you may want to go MIA, missing in action, just disappearing. It's not a good idea because you're still a professional. You're a colleague. And we'll talk about how not to do that. If you have to resign just because it's not right for you, it's not right for your head, not right for your health, it's just not right. It can happen. Schedule a meeting with your supervisor to resign or have a conversation. You don't want to do it over a phone call or an email or a text. You'd like to do it in person, face-to-face or a Zoom. Hey, Ms. Smith, I really thank you for the opportunity. It's not really what I thought it was. You're not going to get personal. You're not going to go into specifics. I think it's best for me at this time to resign my position. I can clean up, finish up, but I think that's best. It's your right to do that. Think about that and prepare a resignation letter and you sign it. You get right to the point. You highlight the positives. I learned the following. It was a great experience. I appreciate the time you spent with me, et cetera, et cetera. But at this point in my career or in this point of my process, educational process, I think it's best for me to leave. It's professional. It ends. What's the worst that can happen? I'm an employer. My intern resigns. Okay, thank you for letting me know. I wish you the best of luck. If they're not, I could imagine they wouldn't be, but if they're not nice, okay, I was professional. I did what I had to do. I wrote you the letter. Thank you for your time. And they have nothing to say except for it might not have worked out. So it happens. Again, if you have problems with it, you email me. If it's an emergency, I'll see you the next day because it's uncomfortable. I get it. Nobody likes to be in that position, but welcome to the human race, as I say. It's part of the process. Okay. Don't burn bridges. I mean, we threw this in here. You're not going to do it, but. And again, burning bridges is you write an email and you say, boy, you're not cool. You were not nice to me. Or you just never want to go on social media. Boy, company X is really a bad place for you to work. There's no reason for that. It'll come back to haunt you. You're above that. I'm taking care of my own self. I'm taking care of myself. Basis what's happened. Privately, if someone asks you, one of your friends that may be going there, you give them an honest opinion, not a bad mouth opinion. It could be something like, well, yes, it might be good for you. It wasn't good for me because of the following. It just doesn't help to badmouth anybody. Again, any kind of intellectual property shared, just give it back. It's fine. And you know what? You finish strong. Even though I'm resigning tomorrow, or the next day is my last day, I'm going to put my effort in. I'm going to get my work done, and I am happy to finish. Thank you again for your opportunity. And that's it. So that's pretty much the presentation, because I wanted to give everybody a chance to ask questions about anything. Things are going well, things are going poorly, about really, this is your next 20 minutes or so. If you want to talk, I'm here for you. Gotta be a question out there. Or raise your hand. Is everybody having a good internship experience? And while you're thinking about that, has everybody put their thank you notes in? Okay. Anybody having an issue, want to talk about anything else about maybe something that's not happening in an internship? Or is anybody thinking that they would like to pursue this internship again, and maybe what you might want to do? Okay, here's a question. Hang on a minute. Oh, that's a great question, Orly. How long would you suggest the thank you notes be? Is it better in cards or letters? That's a really good question. And Orly, they're all good answers. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, very artistic, very, you're not a banker, okay? So maybe it could be a card. It could be something with a drawing on it. It could be something really nice. You could even do that in finance. Of course you could, or consulting, or in STEM. It's your relationship or your conversations you've had with that individual. You know, it's that connection, right? If I'm going to, like my first or second or third year working full time, there were some people in an organization that they were very, very, not to say stilted, very formal. So if they were very formal, I'm not going to send them back an email or a letter. Hi, Chucky, how are you? Probably not a good idea. Hi, Mr. Smith or Ms. Smith is probably the better way to go. And here's the kicker again on this. Not that everything you're doing is a letter, like everything is I'm looking to do something. But that person that you're reaching out to on a professional basis, you may need to reach out to again next year, 3 years, 4 years down the road. They'll remember, boy, Orly, Leah, Ellie, they were professional all the time. I really feel good about the fact that maybe I'll hire them or I'll refer them to somebody, because my name is on a referral. Everything they ever did to me was cool. They might not be perfect. They might have made mistakes, but boy, I really feel good about the fact, basis how they reacted to me, how they're going to react to somebody else. I think I've said this 100 times, and I'm sorry if I repeat myself, but it was either Andy Warhol or I think it was Andy Warhol who said, or Woody Allen, half of life is showing up and the other half is who you know. In the who you know, it's the connection you've made with the articulation again of, I'm so smart, I'm so cool, and remember all the cool things that I did for you to get this done, which is not bragging, but it is. That's the stuff you just want to keep emphasizing, the articulation. Any other questions? I like answering questions. What do you think about that? Did anybody go to that barbecue on the 5th of July? Oh, good. Was it good? I was on vacation. That's why I didn't go.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a good time.
Oh, I didn't go because I was on vacation, but I thought.
Yeah, it was festive. It was nice to see people.
Oh, good. Okay. And then what are we saying here? Okay. Could you please share any tips for how to leave an impact during a particularly short internship? It is short due to management control, but I will only get to work in person about 3 weeks, and then we'll continue virtually hours. Perfect. Again, when you're leaving any internship, short or long, the best practice is there's one or two, let's do the worst case scenario, which is worst case. I didn't really get to connect with anybody. I just did my work. You know, I was an intern. They were nice to me. I did my work. I didn't connect. Okay, great. You know what? In that case, there's not so much personality. You then email or you have a little conversation or a short conversation with the person who hired you. Hey, Ms. Smith, you know, it was a short email, short and sweet. Now I'm virtual, but I got all this work done. It was a great experience. It long or short. Thank you for your time. That's really it. Again, in that short experience, you might have had 3 or 4 people. That's a wonderful problem to have because I got to speak to everybody. But I have been in internships where, are you sure you remember hiring me? Because you're just kind of ignoring me a little bit, like you're throwing work at me, but you're walking away. Okay. Then in that case, which may happen, I would email the person who hired me and say, thank you. Not, and I know you wouldn't do this, I'm just keeping it light. Thank you, but you could have not ignored me. You wouldn't do that, I know you would, but that's how I would do that. Make sense? And then also, if your supervisor not give you an ending date, how do you decide what would be an appropriate end date? Do you suggest trying to continue the internship to the fall if they have not? Okay, great question again. Well, the first thing is most important is for an ending date is what's right for me. I have worked all summer. I have a really big, hey, I go to Barnard. School is very difficult. I might need 2 weeks out of the last 2 weeks of August to decompress. I might need 3 weeks to decompress. If it's open-ended like that, then you can then go to your supervisor and say, look, I've been working here for 10 weeks or 8 weeks. Is it possible, or my anticipation is that August 3rd will be my last day? It's been wonderful. What do you think? Now, if he says yes or she says yes, but you know they do hire interns sometimes in the fall, you can say, but I'm really open to reestablishing this internship once I get back into the school, once I get my schedule. I find out how difficult my coursework will be, to be fair. So I'm not committing if I can't do it. And then you can start the conversation that way. Everything's a negotiation in a lot of ways. And what's a negotiation? From now until you're the president of the company, each of you being hired to be a president somewhere else, you're going to have to negotiate a salary and benefits. And you know what a negotiation is? It's not adversarial. It's a conversation between 2 adults to find meeting ground that makes sense for everybody. If it starts to become adversarial, like I'm going to beat somebody, they're going to beat me, you don't need to be working there. If they really want you, it's a conversation. Yeah, I need some time to decompress. I would like to come back in the fall, but to be fair to you, I got to find out my schedule because I could be taking a class that's going to not crush me, but take up a lot of my time. That's the conversation. It's a negotiation. And if you've done the work, you're professional, you show up, I guarantee you, and this is the place you want to work at, people will listen. They will pay attention to you because you know what? Great workers are not that easy to find. You know, I find somebody who's really great, I want to make sure I try to keep a connection. Any other questions? Oops, good. What are some key questions we can ask ourselves when reflecting on internship? Very good, good question. I mean, key questions. Did I kind of like that profession? How about that number one? Like I took an internship. It was in healthcare. It was in a nonprofit. I really like what the people did. I don't ever want to ever do that again. Or the tasks they gave me. Boy, that's terrible. I got it done. I'm not doing that again. And or, boy, I didn't think I really liked that, but I really liked that. Like they told me to do something. I'm like, I'm not good at that. And I turned out to be crushing it. Self-awareness. I don't really like to talk to people, sell people, say, holy smokes, I'm a great salesperson. I present, I do all this cool stuff. Those are the things you're learning. That I like the experience from the work perspective. I like doing this kind of work. I like being alone. I like being amongst a lot of people. I like the industry. Even though the job is not exactly what I want to do, that organization does what I want to do. I'll become senior. I'll take it over. I like that. Or great people. I have freshmen. They're going to be finance majors. Finance. They get the big job, full-time opportunity. They come in the first day of September as seniors. Great news, Greg. I got the full-time job, big money, at the bank. Everything is great. What's the problem? The bad news is I love everybody there. I'm never going back. I hated every second of it. Okay, great. Now that's good. You find something else to do. Same thing. I went to a museum. I've always wanted to work in a museum. I'm never going to work in a museum again. I will go there to pay a ticket to go see a Rembrandt, but I'm not working there. Okay, great. That learning curve is so valuable, you can't imagine. If that makes sense. I wish I had that learning curve. My first job was the worst job in the history of America for me. It was just terrible for me. Other people loved it. Anything else? All right. Well, if there's nothing else. Oh, wait, yay. My questions. How can I ask for more work? This is a good question. And internships to be underestimated slightly because of my first year. I think I can take on more work, but I don't want to come across disrespectful since I'm working in a country where the culture is different than the US. I think that's a really, 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 really good question. And I think that the fact that you're asking that to be respectful about it tells me so much about, you as a person. I think you're already there. You're already in the right spot. I think the question is to go to your supervisor. I hope you're happy. Something like this. I really hope you're happy with the work I'm doing. I'm really happy with it. I think I'm doing extremely well. I think I might be able to be more productive. I think I can help. Do any other areas in the organization need help with someone like myself? I'm not gonna, take on work that's going to interfere with what I already have, but I'm getting this stuff completed really well. If you need more help, I'm happy to take on more. Something like that. You're not demanding. You're not saying, boy, this is kind of boring. I'm being facetious again. But you're saying, I'm getting stuff done. I want to help some more. I'm not going to take on more work to affect the work that I've already given to upset the person giving me that work. But I'm open to more if that makes sense. Something like that. It's straight, respectful. I get what you're saying. I think you're in good shape that way. I think you'd be fine. And if anybody wants to disclose, wait, I think one more question. It's up to you. What's the best part so far of your internship this summer? If anybody wants to just disclose anything, cool. Just shout it out.
I think the people that I've met some cool people who are like, I'm at a nonprofit, and it's like the things that people are doing outside of the nonprofit, especially, are pretty interesting. So
excellent. Yeah, I mean, that's the other cool part of an internship. You meet different people outside of the academic, world. Not everybody's different, but just different ways of looking at things. Anybody else?
Yeah, I also agree. I think the people are the best part. I feel like I'm like outside of the US, so I feel like I've been meeting people that I wouldn't have otherwise met from like really diverse places and just like walks of life. So that's been really rewarding.
Excellent. Excellent. Good. Let me just reinforce too. I know sometimes it's difficult to get, appointments on Handshake. And look, you're going to be looking for other jobs, etc. But as you wind these things down, if you are running into like hiccups or something like that, or you just have the issues, the office is available, right? So you're not going to, I have to make an appointment on Handshake and it's 3 weeks, even though I got a problem here. Or it's the same thing. If you have an interview tomorrow for another job and I need a mock interview or something, and I have 12 hours to get this done, you're not going to wait 3 weeks to make an appointment. So I'm just reinforcing that. And Fred, oh, good. The office was very small. The great conversation with Bill. Exactly. And that's right. And just to add to that, Oli, I mean, yes, the art world is small. But as you begin to network and leverage these internships, even what's considered small becomes large, right? It's a bad analogy, big fish in a small pond, doesn't matter. But you begin to find out, I didn't realize those people in the art world too. Or I didn't even realize that within a for-profit, a big organization, they might have part of that is an entity that gives money to an art world or to a nonprofit. They may not be working in that area, but they have an interest. They have a philanthropic interest. They're involved. That makes your network even bigger. from that network, as you leverage this, oh, I might find somebody in a for-profit that has interest in the arts, that is not in the arts, who may be able to direct me to somebody else in the arts I never knew about. So even though that world is small, and that's what leveraging is all about. Your network gets bigger, you start to connect with people, you don't know who their connections are. It's a spider web that way. And I think I've said this to students a couple of times when I first got to Barnard. I had a student that I think she wanted to get into hospital administration or something. It's kind of difficult to do that as an intern, as a full-time job. It's just because. And I said to her, what do her parents do? And, nobody's in healthcare, et cetera. But it turned out, I think her father ran like a trucking company. And it turns out one of the deliveries they made was to a major hospital. So they knew somebody in like the loading dock of the hospital who knew somebody in HR who, by the way, they got an interview. Now, that's not always going to happen, but it's an example of, you never know. It's a spider web. It's not linear. It's not A, B to C. It's like the job search, A, B, Q, G, B, Y, J, a couple of numbers thrown in for yucks to get to C. It's all over the place, but you don't know where that's going to take you. And as I say all the time, objects in motion tend to stay in motion. You just want to be in motion. You're in that, you're bouncing around, you'll see where it follows. All right. Well, happy Wednesday, everybody. Stay cool. It's a little bit warm, but it's nice. No more fires, thankfully, hopefully, not wood. And don't be strangers to the office. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks.